staff and I was involved in video production. And then I moved on to the University of Oklahoma, where I majored in creative media production, which is just a really fancy way to say video. And I moved on after that to be a corporate videographer and public relations coordinator for a different municipality in Texas over the last few years. And now I'm here. So super, super excited to be here. I'm going to be talking about creative communication with your community. And I'd like to start this off with an idea. That idea being, whoops, well, hold on a second. There we go. What if the hot topics in your community were actually the smoke coming out of the steam train? And what I mean by that is, what if instead of shying away from tough conversations, we could leverage them for positive change within the community? And today, I really want to challenge you all to think of feedback, even negative feedback sometimes, as a catalyst to morph disorganized chaos into organized mobility. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different things today, but at the end of the day, it's about a few different things, but the most important being what matters most to you. When you think about what to watch or what to eat or what to wear, or anything that you do, you're obviously participating in consumerism, even unknowingly. And that's really not anything new. So please don't click off my webinar yet. But as consumers become more aware and consumerism becomes more consuming, as communications professionals, I think it's really important for us to dissect why we do the things that we do, why we buy what we buy and eat what we eat. But it means something very different for government than it does for a normal company. A really important piece of that puzzle, in my opinion, is brand management or brand identification. And even though it's kind of weird to think about, the city or town that you work for is its own brand. I mean, it has its own logo. You have employees that work there. You have specific fonts that you use, which are hopefully not Comic Sans. But as you're developing what you want to be in the future for brand identification, it's a really good idea to do a check-in to see what matters most to you as a person that also lives in a city or town that wants the best quality of life that you can and the best goods and services. You know, we live in a world of perfectly curated images of manicured lawns, and people are having the best day of their life every day of their life. And in a world full of that, I'd really like to challenge that idea with, a quote from All Star from the Shrek movie, "All that glitters ain't gold." I'm not going to sing it because you would click off the webinar, but you're welcome for putting that in your head all day. But, I think in a world full of things that look beautiful and shiny, there are a few things that stand out. Authenticity. We're not robots and we don't need to talk like them. Humor stands out. Humor helps people deal with uncomfortable or difficult situations a lot of the time. And then also accountability. It shows that you care and that you're a human being, also going back to that authenticity standpoint. So I'm going to talk about all of those in a little bit more depth. So we'll talk about the first one, authenticity. And this is one of my favorites. So in my opinion, I think authenticity is one of the best compliments you can get from anyone ever, because it really isn't natural in a lot of marketing spaces for the sole reason that we live in a world where everything is shiny and Instagrammable. And to be able to say, this is who we are, we're not perfect, but we're working on it, is a really powerful craft. And it actually is a skill that you have to work on. And not everybody has that. Not every place has that. So I think we have a lot of that at our disposal, specifically because of the people that work at the places where we work. So many government workers, no matter the occupation within the government, they have the same goal: to serve a community and make other people's lives better and easier, even if they themselves don't live there in that community. And to be able to show that there are real people doing real people things like being silly, like the firemen at the top when appropriate, having fun, like the officers at the bottom when appropriate, and loving their job. I feel like that really stands out. It's not often that people like going to their jobs and like the work that they do at the end of the day and feel fulfilled about the work that they do at the end of the day. And that is such an awesome that's such an awesome thing that we have at our disposal. And we have such a big community of people to choose from. So authenticity is something that we really should try to push into as much as we can, as well as humor. So there's the saying that laughter is the best medicine. And I do think that's true, although I'd argue and say NyQuil is a pretty close second. But humor is such a great tool for humans to cope with stressful, uncomfortable, difficult, irritating situations. If you think about it, when you have a bad day, how many times do you make a little joke about like, stop giving me the toughest battles. I'm not the strongest soldier, or, something silly like that, because it's a way to deal with that and take the sting out of a situation that really, to say it plainly, sucks. So, as psychologist as it sounds, being able to use humor to talk about difficult or even boring topics that sometimes us as government people have to talk about, it mimics human behavior to laugh at yourself a little bit and to poke at yourself a little bit, further proving the first point about being real people doing real people things. That sounds like a robot to say real people doing real people things, but you get my point. And also too, it's just engaging. To be very honest, look at yourself and look at the types of posts that do well content or engagement wise on your pages. It's mostly funny content. That's what people want to see, and that's what keeps them engaged. So humor is obviously a really great tool, and that's kind of just a given. Accountability is also a really good tool. So it's like the last of the trifecta, in my opinion. It's probably the easiest and also simultaneously the hardest of the three to capture for government, I think. So since we're government, we kind of have to be accountable because, laws and boring stuff. But trust means a lot more in our department than it does for a regular brand. Because we are fiduciaries of taxpayer money. So we want people to trust us more than just because we say they can or that they should. We really have to prove it to them. I know you're looking at the slide and you're probably like, girl, what is this on the side? This is a picture of one of our roads before it was fixed. Don't worry, it looks very nice and beautiful now. But I put this in here because this, goes to the point that I'm trying to make about accountability. So you'll hear a lot more about our roads later on. Like Krissa was saying, we have some awesome campaigns and videos all about our roads, and you are more than welcome to go watch any of those and laugh at me in the videos. But, I put this in here because this is the point I'm trying to make about accountability is we have to be able to own up to our shortcomings or things that we need to work on. And that also plays into the authentic nature of posting and working at a government is you need to be able to say and advocate for the things that residents need because they need you to advocate for them. Also, too, simply put, our customers are not just buying a product once like in a normal company. They are living out their purchase of a land or home every single day, and they need somebody, i.e. us, to take accountability so that they can feel good about their purchase that they are living out every single day. So accountability is really important for government, and it's going to make it so that people want to interact with us. So we can take those three aspects, those really important pieces, authenticity, humor, and accountability, and organize them into really creative and multifaceted campaigns. I really hate to break anybody's heart, but writing a news story and having a bunch of like engineer speak and IT speak it's going to go right over everybody's head. People are going to tune out, and it's basically just as effective as screaming into the void and calling it a day. So getting creative means more than just a mix of types of posts. Of course, you do want to have a mix of things. You want to have photos, videos, copy. You want to make sure that things are fun and playful. But there are other tactics as well. But it's really good to have a very well-rounded campaign that doesn't just focus on one specific piece. But that is going to be able to get the word, whatever the word is, out there and in the hands of your residents. So a little note on storytelling. Storytelling is really important to be able to get the message out there. So years ago, I started doing stand-up at my college because my mom told me that I was funny. And I wanted to know if my mom was right or if she was just being my mom and telling me I was good at everything. But the first few sets that I did of stand-up taught me a whole lot that I use every day in my career. But most importantly, I think it taught me the art of storytelling. And storytelling is about, letting people inside and keeping them engaged while you give them, all of these different details. So, oh, got an email, sorry. Um, you know, one of the big things about telling a good story is letting somebody in on the joke. And I don't necessarily mean that as a pun because I'm talking about stand-up. It could be a serious story about a fireman saving a puppy from a burning building, or it can be a hilarious story about we need to fix our roads. But you really have to let people in on that. In a way that is talking with people and not at people. I think that's one of the big challenges that we face as government communicators is it's really easy to talk at people because as somebody that works in the government, you have all of these different pieces of information. You have every single piece of information, and technically residents do too. They can, look up that information at any time. But because we are subject matter experts on a lot of different things, it can be really easy to talk at people because you're trying to give them all of the information, but they might not understand it or perceive it in the same way. So, in order to tell a good story and let people inside that information and it to resonate with people, we do have to change our approach to encourage that positive engagement. So when you're telling a story, we really want to give details that matter, not necessarily every single little detail, because people don't care about that. Sometimes that means more work for us of funneling that information down and picking out the most important or best pieces of that story. And that's not to say necessarily it's the pieces that make us look the best. It's just the best pieces of that. Um, you do want to use humor, we want to laugh at things and even ourselves when it's appropriate, and do it in a really creative way. So one of the things that I really like to do, and you can see it if you look at the link that Carissa has sent over, is I like to use callbacks. So in stand-up, when you're listening, a lot of times the comic will say something at the beginning, and it's kind of like a funny, silly line. And then they'll give all of these different details of a story. They take you through this whole thing, and you kind of forget about it, whatever they said at the beginning. And then at the end, they say this punchy, funny line that ties the entire story all together, and it brings it back up. And it really just strings the entire thing through. And that's called a callback. And I think as regular communicators, I think sometimes we forget that we could use callbacks and that they are a really good asset for us. Really just because they allow the audience to feel like they're inside the joke. They feel like they're there. They were there from the beginning. They have this inside knowledge on a particular subject. And it makes people laugh. I mean, we've seen comments on our stuff when we use callbacks of, I remember the first video of this series, or ha ha ha, that's so funny, and I love this character or whatever. So using recurring series, recurring characters as well as like details and humor, it really locks people in and keeps them engaged because they keep wanting more. And that's really the main point of what we do. So the question is, why does it matter? Why do we post this stuff? So throughout my short-ish government career, I've heard from a few people that it's kind of presented in a binary sometimes. That we either post one to get the important information out there, or two for engagement purposes. And I personally think that there's a secret third option, kind of like when you ask somebody what they want for dinner and they know, but they won't tell you. I think there's a secret third option. I think the real reason that we post things and get that information out there is to facilitate community activism and advocacy, which is both positively and negatively influenced by our ability to get the important information out there and seen by other people. So I would like to challenge that by saying, I don't think number three can exist without numbers one and two, but I don't really think any of them can exist without the other ones. I don't really think that it's a binary. And before I move on, I think when we do talk about engagement, especially as government communicators, sometimes people like to say, we don't post just for the engagement, and engagement is just about feeding your ego. And let's be very clear, getting likes and comments and shares on things, it is an ego boost. We don't have to lie. We do not have to lie in here. But ultimately, we don't or shouldn't want engagement solely to feed our ego. But it is important. Like I said, numbers one, two, and three can't exist without the other one or other ones. And we do need engagement for algorithm purposes. So to get our content out to people, that important information in the hands of the people that it matters to the most, we do have to have engagement. So I like to think of this kind of as a little kid being a picky eater. So when you're a kid and all you want to eat is mac and cheese, and your mom wants you to eat vegetables to be strong or smart or whatever, what'd she do? She probably puts broccoli in your mac and cheese, or my mom put applesauce in our brownies. That was weird. Um, just so that you get what you need in the way that you want it. And that's really in the hopes of one day you say, hey, broccoli isn't that bad. And I can eat a plate of broccoli without, going crazy or gagging or something like that. And I think that that is what we're doing with this concept and focusing on engagement, focusing on connecting with people in a creative way. We're making important and sometimes boring information palatable with metaphorical cheese if we have to, with authenticity, humor, and accountability. And so I do think that it's important, and not just because it's an ego boost. Which brings me to my little steam train. I think hot topics are full of steam, and it is time to turn that into community advocacy and propel that train forward. So it's not our goal as government communicators to get people to like us personally as people. That would be awesome, but it's not really our goal. It's our job to get people to care about their community because we already do. We already work here and serve this community every single day. That's why we work here. So it's our job to get them to care. And there are always going to be nasty comments, but there are always going to be people that hate rainbows and puppies and sunshine and everything great in the world. But for the most part, I think people just want to feel heard when they voice their opinions. And just because something isn't inherently positive doesn't mean that it's inherently negative. But in terms of hot topics, ignoring the problem breaks trust. And I'm not really sure who needs to hear that besides boyfriends of Christmas pasts, but you simply can't disarm hurt feelings by ignoring the problem. And owning up to your actions or inactions sometimes, um, that build that it builds that trust and it focuses on the accountability aspect that we talked about earlier in the presentation. And, to be very clear, I'm not advocating for duking it out in the comment section, but it's really true that people are going to make up their own reasoning for things if you don't respond to them at all. So you don't have to engage with flat out awful comments, but we have seen people at Alvarado go to bat for us when we've taken the time to disarm complaints in a really authentic way. And a really good example of that is when people respond to us, if we put up photos or a video of a recap of an event, sometimes people say, "Oh, I wish I knew about that." And you can read it one of two ways. You can read it as, "Ugh, wish I knew about that. You didn't do a great job, putting out all this information about it." Or you can read it in the way of like, "Oh man, I'm sad. I wish I knew about that." And we've seen people that have said stuff like that and also have taken the time to say, "Hey, so sorry you couldn't come to this event. Here's a link for our sign up for our alert messaging system. We put stuff out to keep you up to date with all the events that we have coming up. Take a look and sign up for it if you'd like." And then those people have also advocated for us in resident pages and all that kind of stuff. So now we've taken them, instead of ignoring the problem because we think that it's negative, just because it's not inherently positive, now we've taken them and kind of converted them to our side, and they're advocating for us too. So hot topics or, negative comments, it's not always necessarily negative, if you really think about it. And one of the ways that we have seen a lot of comments on, this is a very hot topic, is our ongoing Fix the Dang Roads campaign. So like Krista said, this is part of the reason why I'm here. This is a multifaceted campaign that started a few years before my arrival in Alvarado. If you look at the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see a woman in a car, and she has a little bleep over her mouth. Well, that's our current Mayor Pro Tem, and that is from the original Fix the Dang Roads video. And in the original Fix the Dang Roads video, she is bumping along this road because in Alvarado, we have probably just as many potholes as we have people. And she's bumping along this road, and she stops and she pulls over and she yells at our mayor and our city manager, and she says, "When are you guys gonna fix the dang roads?" But there's a bleep, and I'm sure you can imagine, what's going on with that. And it really resonated with people a few years ago because that's exactly how residents here feel. There are a lot of potholes and there are a lot of streets that need to be fixed. And there are a lot of people that are saying, "When are you going to fix the dang roads?" And over the past 2 years, Public Works has worked super hard to repair a few major roads. And although we're nowhere near finished, they have made, excuse me, some really great progress. And over the past few months, we've really upped our communication since I've gotten here. And we've released a few new videos to the series. There's one you can see in the top left corner. There's yours truly falling down in one of our nicest and most comfiest potholes in Alvarado. And we also have another video of our city manager lifting some weights with the firemen talking about a street that's going to be repaired by the fire station. So we always do callbacks to the original Fix the Dang Roads videos when we have new ones going on. And it really has worked. It's really built a brand around Fix the Dang Roads. And like I said, our residents are resonating with it and they love it. We're able to poke fun at ourselves and how residents feel about the roads, and we're able to say, "Hey, we know these roads are not perfect and we're working on fixing them. Here's an update." And just to let you know, we also have done other things as part of this campaign too. It's not just a video campaign. We've made custom door hangers, signs, and a new webpage to talk more about this hot topic. But honestly, it has worked super, super well. So I included some stats from our most recent video, which was me falling in a pothole, or actually two. And it did really amazing on social media with a reach of nearly 36,000 people. It got over 400 likes, almost 100 shares, and it was featured in Good Government Files, written by Will Hampton. I know he's here today. So, hi, Will. Thank you so much for featuring us. And honestly, like I said, it is one of the reasons that I'm here presenting today to talk about this topic. But it didn't work just because it's a hot topic, because a hot topic has the potential to go super south super fast. And it didn't. Like I said, it worked out and it's been doing really well. It's been a really good ride, but it worked because it was authentic. We know our community isn't perfect, but we are who we are. It has humor. It's funny. Who doesn't love somebody falling down? And somebody that's new to the city that's trying to make a difference. It's funny to have this like, person that's wearing these, nice little professional clothes and then they're falling down in the middle of the street. It's funny. And it also took accountability. So it showed that we want the roads to get better too, and we're working on fixing them. And here are updates. We're doing everything we can on every front to get where we need to go, but it's just going to take a while. And we were transparent with that, taking that accountability for it. So this approach has allowed residents to laugh with us and not at us so that we can talk with them and not at them. And it's paving the way for community change and, belief in us as a government and as the fiduciaries of those funds. So at the end of the day, it's just about one thing. It's about what matters most. So thank you guys so much for coming to my little presentation. This is the first one I've ever done. So if I was bad at it, please don't tell me.
Well, I think everyone would agree. It certainly was not bad, and such an inspiration to all of us. So I'm going to go to some of the questions that we got in the comments and keep them coming, everyone. I love some of the feedback we got too. Sarah said she said, fix the dang roads, amazing video. I totally agree with her on that one. And Helene said, humor is always my go-to for ice breaking and tension breaking. Totally agree. And Will said, I love the phrase real people doing real people things. I agree with that as well.
Thank you.
Tommy said you're spot on about talking at versus talking with. And then Will commented again and said, my goodness, but that's a great point. Ignoring the problem breaks trust. That's gold. I agree. I think that could be a whole campaign itself. I love it. Curtis said, great campaign all the way around. And then we got a comment from Brianna. She said, after you convert people into advocates by addressing their comments, do you see that they also begin interacting with other residents in the comments on your behalf? Are good community conversations being started?
Absolutely. That is a great question. And that's my sister, by the way. So
Oh, good question. I did notice her last name's Hall, so that makes sense.
she's the best. But yes, after we do convert people into advocates on our part, um, people do start having really good conversations with other people in the community. Like I said, we've had people advocate for us there are lots of pages that are like, Alvarado residents or people talking about blah, blah, blah. And we've seen people say, I didn't know about this, or this happened and I missed this meeting. And someone else, before we have even gotten to it, has said, hey, here's a link for the alert messaging system. I got an email, call, and text about it, and maybe you should sign up if you want to. We have people tagging other residents and things saying, hey, did you see about this event? Maybe you should go. Do you want to walk there together? And you will have a lot of people that piggyback off of other people, whether it's positive or negative. So if you're able to turn some of the negative into something that's positive, you're going to have more people piggybacking off of the positive. And also, too, I'm going to be very honest with you. We still get negative comments on pretty much everything that we post. You're not really going to get rid of that. But when you do turn the tide a little bit, you'll have residents that'll kind of say something back to some of those negative comments. We don't even have to respond to them. It's kind of like building a community of little moderators that are like, hey, they're trying their best, and we don't even have to say we're trying our best anymore. And so I think that that's a really powerful tool, is getting that community advocacy. If you have more people that are showing up to meetings and like city council meetings, or just meetings about what you want the community to look like in the future. We like to involve residents when we can on, helping us spread the word to things. And I work with residents every single day. And that really helps too, because if they trust us and like us on a personal level, even that's not our main goal, but if they do like us and trust us on a personal level, then if we say, hey, tell your friends that we have this event coming up and we'd love to see you there. A lot of our staff even just goes up to people at events and introduces ourselves and say like, hey, I'm Michaela, I'm here taking pictures. Can I get a picture of you and your family? And it really builds that community trust. And so we do have a lot of people that are folding inward in that way. So yeah.
That's awesome. It seems like you're really empowering the members of your community with trust and transparency. And I think that's so powerful. So
Yeah.
I love hearing that. I love seeing what you've done. Tommy said or asked, how do y'all decide on the topics you address with this type of communication campaign? Have you found topics that did not generate the response you had hoped for?
So like I said, I've been here for 4 months, so I have a lot of learning and growing to do, a lot of learning about Alvarado. And really one of our biggest things was and is the Fix the Dang Roads campaign. So our city manager has a really different idea about social media than other places that I've seen or other people that I've talked to. He is really a big advocate for sharing the good stories that are happening. And I know that that's not always possible. There is boring information that you have to share. Let's just call it what it is. There is information that is harder to make a good story out of. There just is. So you really do have to think of a good spin on things, and not everything has to be funny. There are topics that I thought would be really easy to market, like our animal shelter, like who doesn't love cute puppies? And that has been one of my biggest challenges. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I thought people would be like, yeah, I want to go adopt a puppy. There are free adoptions right now. And that has been a big challenge. So sometimes they do generate a different response than what you originally imagined. But I think spending time and coming up with a good storyline to something is the biggest thing that you can do, and involve other people, because it's really easy to have communications happen in a vacuum, especially as a really small city. I'm the only communications person here. But when I take my ideas to other people, we have, sessions where we can bounce off of each other. Actually, the video of me falling in a pothole, it was a joke that our city manager said. It was not a real suggestion. And I just said, okay, great meeting. And I left and I wrote it, and I had our intern help me film it. And we filmed it in 9 minutes because he needed to leave. And we did it in one take. And then that was it. And I brought it to our city manager and I was like, would you like to look at this? And he said, that's great, let's let it fly. And I did. So it doesn't always have to be the most well thought out something. Obviously, you want to put some thought to it, of course. But sometimes things just turn out a little bit differently than you thought. And if you think something's funny, I think that's worth exploring it. You want to be appropriate, obviously, with government communications. You don't want to be too silly, but it's okay to be silly. People want to see real people doing real people things. That's what they like.
I love it. I think that's a great point as well. Okay, Will asked, what did you do to study humor? Lots of folks try to use it, but it can backfire if they aren't actually funny. Such a good point, Will. Let me try to, I'm guilty. I'll try to be funny and it's like flat as can be. I get that.
I think that that's a great point. I don't know. I feel like I would, I don't even know. I didn't really study being funny. I just got to give props to my mom and dad, I guess. Um, thank you, Will. I think that uh, I think you have to be okay with putting yourself in the situation to laugh at yourself. Like I said, If you're having a bad day and you joke around about, why would this happen to me or whatever, you have to be okay with being silly. I think putting yourself out there and letting yourself be criticized a little bit goes a really long way, because nobody really wants to be the butt of the joke. But if you're okay being the butt of the joke, and not everybody is, but if you're okay with being the butt of the joke, then people find that humorous. Like, I didn't really want to necessarily fall in a pothole, but I don't care. Like, whatever, if that gets people talking about the roads and they are not so angry about the roads because they're laughing at me and they're like, haha, you new lady fell in the road, that's fine. You can laugh at me, but as long as you're not yelling at me.
Right. Well, as long as they're listening and getting the information, understanding the information, like I really think you have a natural, authenticity about you. And so I think that probably comes through too when you're trying, when you are being humorous, people know it's coming from a very good place. And I think that probably helps as well.
Also, too, people do love puns. Personally, I'm not a pun gal, but we had a solar eclipse tips video, and I was in it, and we shot it pretty quickly. We were trying to get some stuff out and ready for the solar eclipse, and I put a bunch of puns in there, and it really resonated with our community. I don't personally think that's funny, but you kind of just have to see what our audience thinks. And also, too, I do monitor, sorry, I just thought about this, but I do monitor some resident pages and kind of see what they're talking about. If there's a hot topic that they want to talk about, maybe that's something that we need to address. And, or maybe it's not, maybe it's too hot and we need to let it cool down a little bit. But a lot of people talk about our potholes, but they also kind of make jokes about it. Like, someone had posted in one of the resident pages a photo of like a public works person laying like this with their feet up by a pothole, and it was like, felt cute, might fill this pothole later. And they said, this is our public works crew. And I was like, that's hilarious. We won't post that, but you know what? If you guys are okay making a joke about it, we can make a joke about it too. So I think that, looking at what residents think is funny, versus, you have to find that line, and you still want to be professional, but you can be professional and funny. Because, like I said, getting the word out and in the hands of people that are going to come to those meetings and voice their opinions and talk in public forum, that's the most important part of our job. So if you're walking around with a flyer that says, come to our city council meeting, and 50 people walk by, they don't care. But if they see a funny video and there's a topic coming up that we need to talk about, they'll probably come.
That's excellent advice. I like Justin said, humor usually equates to the confidence to go for it. Gosh, isn't that so true? Just being willing to put yourself out there and say, like, I'm trying to be funny and it's coming from a good place and we're gonna try it. And maybe
Yeah.
have a few fails along the way, but it's worth it for the success stories.
And not everything that we thought would be as funny uh turned out that way. You have to have the right person that is delivering that information. So it's okay to use your resources. If someone's not really that funny, maybe you script them out to be more of an awkward character, and they can use that like awkwardness or the dry humor or the deadpan or whatever it is. You have to use their strength. Not everybody has to be funny in the same way.
That's so true. Curtis said, working with a team that wants to be fun and creative with you helps immensely.
Oh,
Being
yeah,
funny along with being professional contributes more to the accessibility of the message/campaign. I
absolutely.
totally agree with that too, Curtis.
Absolutely. I mean, being humorous, being funny is not everybody's brand, and that's okay. Not everybody has to be the same. If everybody was the same, then it wouldn't stand out that you were authentic or humorous or accountable or whatever. Some people are just more rigid or more um, stoic or more professional or whatever. But being in Alvarado, we have a really unique community that is very, I don't want to say laid back, but in some ways they are. We have a community that cares about their community immensely. I remember my first council meeting that I went to at Alvarado. I was like, why are all these people here? And there were like 30 people in the council chambers, just residents. And they called for public forum, and one woman stood up who is a really big advocate for the community. She's awesome. And she walked up It was right after they had their Christmas event, and she was like, I just want to thank everybody that came here and helped with the event. And we just love you. And we're so proud of all the things that you guys are doing for our little city. And then she sat down, and I was like, where am I? You know,
Incredible.
this
That's
has never
great.
happened before.
That's
So,
really great.
we're in a really unique community that both on the admin side and the resident side really encourages that authenticity. But I think that you can build just a sliver of that anywhere you go. I don't think that it's partly unique to where I'm at, but it's also because we built that here. And
Somebody started it at some point.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and wrap us up, but I want to remind everyone I'm putting a link in the chat because next week for our Wednesday webinar, we have Micah Gaudette back to talk about AI for public safety. So really excited to learn more from Micah and more of what we can do to be more efficient in the world of AI and local government. So make sure to register for that one. And Michaela, I want to say a huge thank you so much for being here and doing this with us. It's such an honor to have you participate in one of our Wednesday webinars, and you are a joy to know, and I can't wait to see more of what you do.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that came. Thank you so much for supporting me, my friends, family, and also new friends that I'm making. I really, really appreciate it. This was my first one ever. So I can eat now.
You nailed it. You did great. All right, everybody, time for lunch. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.